And then I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Okay, looks like most people should see my screen right now. So if you have any questions, by the way, since we are a very large group, if you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat box, and then I will periodically go and check and see whatever questions you have, and I'll answer them. And if you want to just pipe in, go ahead and do that as well. But at any other time, please keep yourself muted so that everybody can hear everything. So I am in our Blackboard class, and hopefully by now you've taken a look at what is in here. So we're in the MATH201 section of Blackboard, which defaults on announcements, and I would use this anytime we might have a change to the tracking calendar. But anything else, as far as that goes, I'd probably just be emailing. Underneath that, over on the left side of the navigation is a Welcome Start Here tab, and that's where I'm going to begin. So it's got my contact information. I do have office hours on Wednesday on campus at the Akron campus, or virtually via Skype, kind of like what we're doing right now. If that's something that you're interested in, just send me an email and let me know, and we can set up an appointment for that. Below that is our course syllabus and the tracking calendar. So I'm going to start with the syllabus. And again, I'm just going to briefly go through just a few pieces of this. The rest of it, please make sure you look over later on your own. So MATH201 is college math. And towards the middle of this page, you can see our course outcomes right here. There's 4 different course outcomes. Starting with proportional reasoning, which we're going to actually begin a little bit today. Then we're going to be working with mathematical models. Then we're going to talk about probability, and then we're going to end with statistics. So there's 4 main course outcomes, and those have been broken up into modules, which I'm going to show you here in a little while. A more detailed list of what topics we're going to be covering here is on page 2, if you're interested in looking at that. For now, I'm going to move on. So very first thing I want to note is here is my contact information, and if you notice here, there is another instructor that is going to be assigned to this course because it's a very big group. So you'll actually have 2 instructors on this course, and we'll be transitioning here in a little while. I'll explain more about that when the time comes for that. So again, it's because nothing's going to change with the course or anything like that. It's just it's a very large group. Let me skip down. Let's talk about your textbook. You should not have bought a textbook. Hopefully you didn't, because it is now available as an ebook, and that's how we're going to use it. You also will be using My Math Lab, and you do not need to purchase anything for that either. You don't need an access code or anything like that. You have everything available through Blackboard already. The only thing you'll need to purchase is, if you don't already have one, is a calculator. You need some sort of scientific calculator, scientific or better. If you have a graphing calculator, you can use that. These are 2 models that I'm recommending because they are relatively cheap. They're easy to use. They have a nice display. They're also available through the bookstore. If you don't have the cash on hand, you can just order them there and use financial aid towards it. Otherwise, they're available in stores like Walmart, Target. You can order it from Amazon.
It's like,
You can also use, since we're blended and online, you can also download a scientific calculator app on your phone if you'd rather do that. There's a whole bunch of good ones out there. I can give you the names of 2 that I have on mine, and they're both free, so that's available as well. Okay, moving on. We do have a ePortfolio project in here, but I'll explain that later. As far as professionalism goes, we're an online environment, so please just be respectful of others. Try to keep yourself muted, and participate in the discussions as much as possible in a respectful manner. Okay, as far as attendance goes, some students have been confused about how the attendance is going to work in here. We are blended remote, which means that we do have live class during Tuesdays at this time. So you are expected to attend each session. That is how you will be marked for attendance. We are not a fully online class, so you do need to sign into the Skype calls each week for your attendance. The makeup policy only applies to your MyMathLab assignments, which are homework and quizzes only. So those have already been preset as far as their due dates go, and then they will remain open for an additional week after they are due. The program will automatically take 10% off anything that is submitted late, and after 1 week, it will automatically close. And there's really nothing I can do about that. Everything is preset in Blackboard, and the settings are already there. We do have other assignments that this does not apply to. That is just for the MyMathLab assignments. Moving down, let's talk about class activities and everything else. So when we meet for Skype and anything else that is required of you in the module, that counts as your classroom activities. So signing into the Skype session is only part of this percentage. You have to sign into your Skype sessions weekly, but then also you need to be looking at the lectures that are in the modules. Again, I want to show you all of this in a little bit, so it'll make more sense if you haven't looked at this yet. MyMathLab is a separate grading portion, which consists of homework and quizzes. The total combined percentage for that is 35. Then we have a couple of reports and a portfolio project. So let me explain the difference between these two things. Both of these are written assignments. The reports are very short, brief assignments that you're going to write up in Word, and they're usually due the following week because they are short. The portfolio, and there's 3 of them, by the way, so there are five each for a total of 15%. The portfolio project is a much larger scale written assignment, and we're going to be breaking up the project into several steps. You'll be assembling it as we go throughout the weeks, and at the end, you'll turn in your final copy. So they're both written, but the portfolio project requires quite a bit more time, and there are several pieces to it. Then there's the reflections, which are basically just journal entry types of assignments. And then you do have one final exam, which is a comprehensive final exam at the end. So that'll be a test on everything for the course. So that's the syllabus in a nutshell. Let me pause here for a second. Questions, anyone? Okay, I don't hear anything, and I don't see anyone asking anything, so I'm going to assume that when everyone's quiet that you're okay. Looks like most people have signed in. If you did not sign in yet into the chat, please do that also. Okay, so let me close this syllabus out and We'll go back to Blackboard and look at the tracking calendar. This is your lifeline for your assignments and due dates for this course. So if you have a printer, you might want to print this out and follow along. If not, then it's available in Blackboard and you can get to it by going to the Welcome Start Here link. And this is basically all of our assignments from here on out till the end and due dates and all of that. So if you follow week by week, this is today. This week here, we're going to be starting the first module, which is located here. In the course content / topic column, you'll see what we're going to be talking about. So we're going to do an introduction. We're reviewing the course syllabus right now. I'm going to show you my math lab and a few other things on Blackboard. And then we're going to go right into starting chapter 3A. In the middle, these are the types of things that we'll be doing during class and also throughout the week with the blended online portion. And then over here on the right is where you want to focus all of your attention for the most part. This is where your homework and assignments are, and there's corresponding due dates. So, for example, classroom activities, whatever that consists of for the week, that's today, right here. So you need to make sure you take a look at whatever it is I'm going to show you and do that today right after I'm done with this call. So if you're on the Skype call, that counts for part of it, but then there's also a little bit that I want to show you after. Then we have my math lab homework and a quiz, but those are not due until the 6th. And then from there, we've got textbook chapters that I want you to just briefly skim over. Don't read it word for word, just skim it over, and I'll show you how to get to the textbook chapter as well. Okay, the reason that these homework and quiz assignments are not due the following week is because we have to finish the module first. So whatever we do today, I would suggest you go in and start the homework that goes along with 3A. But don't worry because you're not going to be expected to turn the whole thing in until the following week, so 2 weeks from now. Any questions about that before I go on? We do not meet in person at all, Olivia. We're blended remote, which means that the Skype sessions are they're taking the place of the face-to-face sessions. So we don't actually meet in person at all, unless you want to for like a tutoring session or something like that. Okay, so let me go back here. So these little boxes are kind of like checking off boxes. So when you complete each thing, you can check them off. That way you know you're done with everything that you needed to do for the week. You could do it right online like that, or if you print it out, just check it off. There you go. After, let's see here. Yeah, after next week, when we start the next module, this is when the first report is going to come. And well, by the time we get there, we'll explain more about that. But everything is available through Blackboard right now already. So I'm going to show you what this looks like here in a second. And there's also a reflection that will go along with all of this as well. But then for the most part, everything is rinse and repeat as far as your tracking calendar goes. So you just take a look at what's over here on the right, take a look at all the due dates over here that go with each thing, and just follow along with that to keep up with your assignments. Okay, so that's your course syllabus and tracking calendar. Underneath that is a diagnostic assessment that is not for a grade, but I would like you to fill this out. This is part of your class activities for the day. I would like you to either download this and type your answers right into it, save it, and send it back to me, or if you have a printer, print it, fill it out on the paper with pencil or pen, and then take a picture or scan it and send it back to me. Again, it's not a graded assessment. It's just for me to kind of get an idea about where everybody is right now before we start. And that way, if I need to weave in some review topics as we go, I will know where our strengths are or where our weaknesses are as far as the math goes. So if you're able to get that to me, that's part of the classroom activities. Let's see. Any questions about that?
When is the diagnostic due?
I would like it as soon as possible. I would like it by the end of today if possible, but I'll take it up till next week just so that I can have a chance to look at it before we really get involved in all of the math.
Okay, thanks.
Problem. Okay, let me continue then. So the major assessments for the course, I'm going to skip the modules for a second. We'll go back to that. Major assessments for the course are already available to you right here. When they say that, they're talking about the reports and the portfolio project, and that's it. The Math Lab is a separate graded thing, and that's got its own tab. So I'm going to show you course assessments just for a second. Again, this is for anybody that wants to get an idea about this stuff, wants to maybe work ahead. The portfolio project directions and the rubric is already here available to you. Once we are through the second module, that's when I'm going to introduce it to you as a class. But if you want to go ahead and look at it now, you can. And same thing with these reports. They have a little M next to them and then a number. That means Module 2. So when we're in Module 2, I'll be introducing this to the class. But just as a heads up, here's the directions in case you wanted to look at it ahead of time or get started on things early. In Module 4, we'll be doing the second report. And then in Module 6, we'll be working on the third report. There's 3 reports, 1 project. And again, this is where all directions and the submission will go. So let me go back to modules, now that I skipped that, and show you what's in here if you haven't looked at this. These are the directions for accessing your ebook, your textbook. So if you haven't done that yet, you might want to take a look at these directions and then just kind of skim over the chapters that I mentioned before. We're going to talk about 3A today, so at some point get into this book and take a look at what it says in your textbook about 3A. Follow these directions. Underneath here is where your modules are. So we're starting with Module 1, which we're going to talk about today again. Module 2, we're not going to be doing yet, but they are set to unlock, I think, 1 module ahead. So again, this is for people who want to look ahead and plan their time accordingly. In Module 1, which is where we'll begin, when you click on the link, you're going to see a few things come up. Each module is set up pretty much the same way. You're going to see a link for a lecture, and then underneath there you'll see a link for your assignments. So the second part of your classroom activities for this week is to view this lecture. So I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. We're not going to go through the whole thing. So you'll open up the link and then click this Begin button. And this is going to take you through the lecture that I'm going to go through with you today during class. So in addition to what I'm going to show you, you have this to look at, and I would like you to read this over as well. It's interactive, so as you go through and read through it, you'll see there's some boxes. There's things you can click on. So here, for example, they're giving you a problem to try, and then when you click over here, you can see what the solution is. They give you additional links and things like that for videos, sometimes PowerPoints, and continue down. they'll give you more information. So these are interactive links that you can click on. These are all things we're going to talk about during class today. But after we leave, if you needed to go back and look at something, this is something that is going to be very helpful. It kind of shows you exactly what to do. And it's a good wrap up to what we'll talk about in class. Continue down. This is everything that we're going to talk about in 3A today. Okay, more examples to click on, more information to look at, and then 2A starts. And we're not going to talk about this till next week. So what I would like you to do for the second part of the classroom activity today is once this call is done, because again, we only have about an hour left. Once the call is done, I would like you to look through this lecture up through where it says 2A. So you can stop where it says 2A unless you want to get a head start on next week, because this is what we'll be talking about next week. So I'm going to stop and pause again there. Does everybody understand? Yes, you can email the diagnostic to me. That's fine. So classroom activities are diagnostic and look at that lecture. Okay, good. So then there's one other thing that we'll talk about. I want to close this out. One other thing that I want to talk about for now, and that's, oh, hold on. Let's go through the assignments. So now that you've looked at the lecture, so you were on the call, then you looked at the lecture, and now you're ready to try some assignments. When you click on the assignments, it'll tell you what you have to do. So in this case, which is we already talked about this multiple times now, according to the tracking calendar, it said you have to look at your homework and do this quiz. Okay. These are both through my math lab, so that I'm going to go to the My Math Lab tab over here to get to them. So when I click on that, the first thing that comes up is a bunch of resources for you. This is all extra stuff that you might find helpful. If I want to go to my homework, I click the Homework tab. And then this is what you'll see. So again, all of your module homeworks are already there for you. Module 1 is where we're going to go in and look. This is a combination of homework for this week and for next week. So there's 27 questions total, but it's partly for 3A and it's going to be partly for 2A and 2B, which we won't talk about till next week. So how will you go about this? Start on the first problem and then take a look at how it's coded over here on the left. If it says 2A or 2B, that's stuff we're going to talk about next week. So you might want to just hold off on that. Anything that says 3A are the topics that we're going to talk about today. So let me see, where are they? They're all kind of mixed up, unfortunately, and I don't have any way to fix that. Here's one from 3A. So this is something that we're going to talk about today. So anything that you see from 3A, after we're done with class and you look at the lecture, you should be able to answer if you don't already know how to do it at this point. Some of it will even be reviewed for you. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to look at and try to do every question that's coded 3A for next week. And that way I don't have to worry about doing all 27 questions all at once for next week. Okay, now let's say I get to a question here and I'm stuck. I don't know how to do this. Over here on the right, besides the lecture, besides the video of the Skype call that I'm doing right now, if you want extra help, there's a question help menu over here. If you click on that, you have a couple things that you can look at. The first two will pull up examples for you to look at. So I'm going to show you the difference between them. My Math Lab is algorithmic, which means that everybody in this class will all have the same homework. Everything will still say the sales tax rate in a city is, but everybody in this class will have a different number for the amount of the percentage. So you won't all have 8.8. Someone might have 8.8, someone might have 8.5, someone might have 7.7. Everybody's going to have different numbers. All the same questions, different numbers. So if I view an example to help me solve this, what it will do is it will take my question with my numbers here and pull up a question that's just like it with different numbers that I can then look at both of them at the same time. So I can see my question and I'll be able to see this example. And then when I click continue, it'll walk me through what to do to solve this example. And then what I'm going to do off to the side is do the same steps with my numbers to get my answer. And now I know how to do it. I'm going to close this out. And now it gives me a chance to put my answer in this box. Okay, that's how you use view an example. For help me solve this, the difference between that is now if I click that one, it's going to take this 8.8 and the 273 that I had up on my screen originally. Those are my original numbers. And it's going to walk me through it, but it's going to make me put my answers in using these numbers that they gave me. And it'll have me go through the whole thing that way. The issue is now, this is helpful, but when I go to close this, watch what happens. My 8.8 and my 273 now changed. So now I have to do it again. So if you're just looking for a little bit of help, view an example is probably the better one to do, because then you only have to do the problem once. If you're really stuck, use help me solve this, but then also know that you're going to have to do the problem again. You have to do the problem twice. All right, and what else do we have? Videos, we'll pull up videos that go along with the textbook for whatever topic it is you're looking at. And the textbook link will take you right to the textbook chapter. So if there was something in there that you remember looking at, you can go right to it from here. Okay, so let me hit pause there again. Questions about any of that so far? Okay. So a couple other things before I close out my math lab. So I'm just going to put in an answer here and get it wrong. Each question allows you 3 tries at the problem. Okay, now I'm going to do my final check and it's going to be wrong. So here's what I put, here's what it was supposed to be. Okay, now it marked me wrong, and hold on, I shouldn't have picked a 2-part one here, but let's do it again. Marking it wrong, everything is wrong. Now, if I want to fix this, rather than hit next question and take my 0 for that last one that I just did, because now it's marked wrong, if I hit similar question, I can try it again. It'll change my numbers again, and then I can try it again. So the bottom line is, for your homework, there's no reason why you should be getting 100%. Unless you just really are stuck and don't know how to do the problem at all. But if it was a simple error, you have the opportunity to redo the question over and over and over again until you do get it right. Once you are satisfied with wherever your progress is, so let's say I did all of my 3A questions and I'm done for this week, then I'll save it and it'll take me back out. So whatever you end up submitting this week, it will keep. And then the following week, we can go back, after we talk about 2A and 2B, you can go back in and finish up all of those questions that we're not going to talk about yet. Okay, so anything like this, If you know how to do it, feel free to go ahead. If you don't remember how to do this, just hold off on anything that says 2A and 2B for now. And it'll save your progress as you go. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it for my math lab. So I'm going to click OK. It'll take me back out here. And then over here, you'll be able to see your score as it stands so far. And due dates will start to come up over here on the left, so you'll be able to see where you're at from here on out. All right, now let me close this out real quick. Now let's say you're ready to take your quiz. You go into Blackboard here. Again, click on the My Math Lab tab on the left. And then instead of going homework, go to your quizzes and tests. So then there's your quizzes. And if you notice here, 0 out of unlimited attempts on the quizzes as well. So just like your homework, you can do your quizzes over and over and over again until they are due. Once the due date passes, then they'll close out from there, and that's it. Okay, that should wrap up the intro and Blackboard and Math Lab and everything else. Yep, you get 3 chances on each homework question, and then from there, if you get it wrong, then you can hit reset. Then it'll give you 3 brand new chances with a new question. Okay, any questions about any of the paperwork, the syllabus, the tracking calendar, my math lab, anything like that before I start 3A?
When it's time to do the quizzes, do you put the date that you want to have it done, or do we just go in there and do them?
They're already open, so you can just go in there and do them. You don't have to wait for any particular start time or anything like that. And yes, you can go ahead. That's why everything is already up. Getting ahead is good. Getting behind is not so good. Yes, please sign in, Sloan. And the tests, you mean the tests or the quizzes, Abigail? There are no tests, actually. There's just a final exam. The quizzes are on there with your homework. There's homework and quizzes, and that's it for my math lab, and then you'll have a final exam at the end. No problem. There's really no way to sign the syllabus, Sloan. So I'm just asking you guys to sign into this chat, into the instant messenger box. Okay. So it looks like everybody else is okay. So let me go ahead and get 3A pulled up here. Okay, so what we're about to start goes with 3A from the textbook, and when this call is done, I will post the video for this to Blackboard, so if you wanted to look back over this Skype call, you'll be able to look at that again. And the reason for that is because this is going to kind of go a little faster than I normally would do it. So if you are struggling to write anything down, if you're going to take notes right now, just know that everything will be on Blackboard after the call is over. I will post it to YouTube. That way everybody can look at it no matter what device they've got. So if I do go too fast, you'll be able to rewatch it again and pause it if you need to fill in any notes that you're going to take. Also, I'm going to do it that way, and that way if anybody ends up missing anything, so if you have to walk away from the lecture right now for any reason, you'll be able to go back and look at what you missed. And in the future, if you end up having to miss a Skype call, like next week, for example, if you can't get on, I will record them as well, and that way you can see what you've missed that way too. So here we go. So we're going to talk about percentages first, and we need to review how you convert back and forth between fraction form, decimal form, and percent form. So we're going to do that right now. If you start with a fraction, like 5/8, to convert that to a decimal, all you need to do is to divide. So it's numerator divided by denominator, so 5 divided by 8, and I'll just throw that up in my calculator, and it'll give me my decimal. From there, if I want to get from decimal form to percent form, all I need to do then is multiply by 100, because percents are out of 100%. To put a percent sign on, you multiply. What that does is move your decimal right 2 times, and so your percent then would become 62.5%. So having said that, if you look at the second row, I actually went to percent form first before I went to fraction form, because from a decimal standpoint, it's much easier to get to the percent. So all I did was multiply by 100. That moved it over to the right 2 times. Okay, so now let's talk about how you get from a decimal to a fraction. This is the thing that oftentimes, if you don't remember how to do any of this, this is the thing that people forget how to do. So here are the steps in a nutshell. Anything to the left would stay to the left. Anything to the left of your decimal point would just stay off to the left. You don't have anything, so you don't have to deal with that. Any digits to the right of your decimal go up in the numerator, and the place value of the last digit would determine your denominator. So it will look like this. 85 over 100 to start, because the 5 is in the hundredths place. And then from there, I simplified. I divided them both by 5, and I got my final answer in fraction form. So if it's left, keep it left. Anything to the right goes in the numerator. Place value is your denominator, and then simplify. Okay, so let's look at the third row then. So now they give you percent form. We need to take it back to decimal form. So to take it back, we're going to do the opposite and divide it by 100. That'll move it to the left twice instead. And then once you have decimal form, then it's easy to get to fraction form. Whatever's to the left stays left. Whatever's to the right goes in the top. And the place value of your last digit becomes your bottom, the denominator. So in a case like this, this indicates that you have a mixed number. Keep the 1 to the left, digits to the right go in the top, place value goes in the bottom, and then simplify. This doesn't simplify any further, so this is done. The only other thing that I could do is convert it to an improper fraction, if that was something I needed to do. And to do that, I would multiply the denominator by the whole number and then add the numerator. So that could be 121 over 100 as well. Okay, any questions about that real quick? I would put the PowerPoints on Blackboard too if you'd like me to, Lawrence. Or anybody else for that matter? Okay, I will. All right, so let's continue then. So here are 3 ways that we use percentages. These are just examples of them being used. So we use percentages to represent fractions, we use them to describe change, and we use them to compare. So we're going to go through how you work with each of these 3 types here. So starting with using them as fractions. Here's an example of how they could be used as fractions. This is a percent problem. So an opinion poll finds that 64% of 1,069 people surveyed said that the president's doing a good job. how many said that the president is doing a good job? So what they're basically giving you is the percent, the total, and they're asking for the part of this poll that said he's doing good. So since that is the setup, there's two ways that we could solve this. I'm going to go through both. One of them is to use a proportion. A proportion is when two fractions are equal to each other. And the general setup would look like this. Put the part over the whole thing, the total, and set that equal to the percent over 100. Since 100% is the total of a percent, these two things would be equal. And the part and the percentage of that, those two things would be equal. So if I go back to my original problem here, I was given the percent, I was given the total, and I was asked for the part. So I plug that in. The percent is over here, the total is over here, down here at the bottom with the whole thing. And since I didn't know the part, I called it X. Now, if you're going to use this method to solve this, the percent gets plugged in as is. You don't convert it in any way. If it's 64%, you use 64. Because dividing it by 100 right here already converts it for you. Now to solve it, cross multiply. So 100 times X has to be equal to 1069 times 64. And then I worked it out. So at this point here, I divided them both by 100 so that I can get my X by itself. And this was my answer. So approximately 684 people thought that he was doing a good job out of the 1,069 that was surveyed. Any questions about that? Okay. Sloan, the recordings that I post is going to be this actual Skype call. So everything that is happening live right now, I'm going to repost the entire thing. So yes, you will hear me talking. But I will also post the PowerPoint for anybody who does not want to listen to me talking. You can just go through the PowerPoint and do it that way too. Okay. The other way to solve something like this is to use a percent equation. Now, anytime you use an equation, though, the percent that is involved has to be converted to decimal form. So if this is what we're going to do instead, then the 64% would get converted to decimal form. So the whole thing was still given, and then all I have to do is multiply that out, and I still get the same answer. Two different ways of doing it. I don't care which way you do it. Pick one that you like better and go with it. Okay, now that's when percentages represent fractions. Now let's talk about how you work with percentages when they represent change. There's two ways of looking at something that's changed. One is called absolute change. And if that's what you're asked for, you just subtract the new value minus the original value. The other way is relative change, which is also known as percent change. That describes the change in terms of a percent. So you would still subtract the new minus the original, but now you would divide it by the original value, which will give you a decimal, and then multiply it by 100 at the end, which will convert your answer to percent form. So we're going to do at least one example of this right now. So we have a portfolio that grows from $1,500 to $2,250. To find an absolute change, we'll do the new minus the original. So I plugged in the new minus the original into my calculator, and I got $750. What it means is, from a dollar amount perspective, this grew by $750. It increased $750. To change this to a percent, I will use this one instead, plugging in 2250 minus 1500. Then I'm going to divide that by the original, which is the 1500. That's going to give me a decimal, and then hit times 100 at the end, and that's going to give me a percent. So if your portfolio goes up if it goes from $1,500 to $2,250, it increased by $750, which is a 50% increase. Questions? Okay. All right, good. Here's one more. So we bought a computer for $1,000, and today it's only worth $300. Describe the absolute and relative change of this computer's value. So the absolute change is when you just subtract. The order does make a difference, because in a case like this, you want it to be negative. The negative represents a decrease. It means that the computer lost $700 in value. And on my math lab, if you had to type something like this in, depending on how the question is worded, they might mark you wrong if you forget the negatives. So you got to watch for something like that. Okay, so it went down by 700. As a relative change or a percent change, 300 minus 1,000 is still from the last part, and now we're going to divide it by the original. And then we'll multiply it by 100, which is a 70% decrease. So it went down by $700, which is the same thing as a 70% decrease. Okay, and that's it for the change. Now here is for comparison purposes. So when we use percentages to compare, we can go with this type of idea here. When something is more than another, you add 100 to the percent. When something is less than another, you subtract the percent from 100. So here's an example of something like that. Carol earns 50% more than William. How many times larger is her income than his? So since it's 50% more, all we need to do is add 50 to 100. So she earns 150% more, which is about 1.5 times as much. That's it for a question like that. If that's how it's worded, that's all you've got to do. More than gets added, less than gets subtracted. The store is having a 25% off sale. How's the item's sale price compared to its original? Discounts come off, so we'll use the subtraction. So I'm going to plug in 25 in place of the P, and that means it's going to be 75% of the original price. So an item's sale price would cost 75% of the original price. Okay, and here's one more. The area of Norway is 25% more than Colorado. So Norway's area is 124% of Colorado's. All right, now this is very simplistic. That's all you have to do if you're just simply asked for the percent. Now, what if you're going to use this? How do we use this idea? Here is an example of how you could. So you purchase a shirt with a labeled price of $21. So it's got a $21 price tag on it at the store. The local sales tax rate is 6%. What is your final cost? So what most people would do, if they know how to do tax, what they would do is they would multiply the price times the sales tax rate and get the tax. Once I got the tax, then they would add that on, because taxes get added. And then that would tell them their final cost. which is perfectly fine. We're going to go through it that way first. So going back to this idea, we can use this. The part will become how much sales tax we'll have to pay, and the whole thing will now represent the cost of the item. So if we do it this way, the percent, remember, has to be converted to decimal form. So I did that. 6% in decimal form is 0.06 times the cost of the item will give me the sales tax. So for a $21 shirt, I have to pay $1.26 in tax, which then means that my total cost, they add these two things together, my total cost would be $22.26. That's how most people would work that problem out. Again, nothing wrong with it, but going back to this idea with the 100 plus and the 100 minus P, we could have done this all in one step. Now, let me show you what that would look like. If you're trying to find the final value and you know that taxes get added, instead of doing it in two steps, use the 100 plus and add all at once. That'll cut your steps down to just doing it one time. Your reference value then becomes your cost. So the sales tax is still 6%. The reference value now becomes the cost of the item. So everything is the same, except instead of finding tax and then having to add it, we're going to find the final cost in one step. Since I'm using an equation, I still have to convert to decimal form, but then I multiply 1.06 instead of 0.06, and that'll give me my final cost in one step. That's how this thing is used. Okay, so here is one more. You purchase a new lawnmower with a retail price of $648. The local sales tax rate is 7.6%. What is the total price? So we're going to try to do it with one step. Since they're asking for the total, I am going to take the price and multiply it by the rate plus 100. So the rate plus 100 in decimal form is how I got this 1.076. 7.6% plus 100, and then I changed it to decimal form. If I multiply that times the price, I get the total cost right off the bat. Any questions about how to use that? Okay, so there was a question in the last class from last week about something that came up on the homework, so I want to call your attention to it. I'm going to work it out on a whiteboard for you. So it is in your homework in my math lab. And it's one of the questions in Module 1 homework towards the end. Let me see if I can find it here. It was this one here. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to work this out. Because in this case, because you're not asked for a final cost, you're asked for something that happened previously. What some people try to do is work out a percent equation and then work it backwards, and percents can't be worked backwards. So that's why we need to talk about it. So I'm going to jot this down on my whiteboard here, and then I'm going to pull it up on the screen in just a second. So in a local election, 39,000 people voted. Let's see here. Okay, this was an increase of 15% over the last election. So how many people voted in the last election? Okay, so bear with me for just a second. Okay, here's all the information they gave us. And in order to work out a problem that looks like this, they're asking for something that happened before. You can't work percentages backwards. You can only work them forward. So if you're going to go with this idea, you have to plug things in accordingly. So what we're going to do is, instead of this being the part and the whole, we call it the compared value and the reference value. This turns into the total. And then this is going to be the people from the last election. Okay, so the total was the 39,000. It was an increase of 15%. So I'm going to do 100 plus 15 to account for the increase. And then I'm going to multiply that by the people from the last election, which is what we were asked for. That becomes the X then. And now I'm going to clean this up. So this was here, and that was that. So 39,000 equals 100 plus 15 is 115. But in decimal form, that's 1.15 times X. That's what it will look like here. Now, if I need to find out how many voted in the last election, then, to get the X by itself, I need to divide both of these. That will cancel here. And then I'm going to plug this in right into my calculator and see what I get. $39,000 divided by 1.15. 33,913 after I rounded it is what I got. So that many people voted in the last election according to all of this. So here is what I want to make sure we don't do. And again, you cannot work percent equations backwards. What some people will try to do is this. They'll multiply the percent, which was the 15%, times the total, which is 39,000. And then try to subtract it away to work it backwards. Let's see what that comes out to be. Okay, so according to that, then this is how many people it increased by then. This is people who voted this year, which was an increase with this. So if we go backwards, some people will work this backwards. That gives you an answer of 33,150 instead. They're not the same answer. Because this doesn't work. You cannot work percent problems backwards. Okay, you have to do it using the 100 plus or the 100 minus. 100 plus in this case because it was an increase. Any questions about that for right now? Okay. So that actually ends what we need to talk about for today. So I want to wrap this all up again here and turn this off. By the way, let's see. That here is the only way to get it to work. All right, so let's see here. Let me close all this out and let's go back and wrap this all up. All right, so according to your tracking calendar, here is what we accomplished today. We did an intro to the class by going over the syllabus and tracking calendar in my math lab. And then we just briefly went over 3A. Your assignments are for the class activities. I would like you to complete the diagnostic assessment and get it back to me however you can. If you have to take a picture and email it to me, that's fine. Go through the diagnostic assessment and then also the lecture 3A in module 1. Those are the two things that make up your classroom activities for this week. Then from there, your My Math Lab homework is 3A. Anything that's coded 3A. And the quiz, you could try. You might want to hold off on that altogether until we are finished with the rest of the module, which we'll talk about next week. That's it. So if you have no other questions, I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen here. If you guys have no questions, then make sure you have signed in. I'm going to screenshot everything again real quick and make sure I got everybody. Make sure you sign into the chat, and if you have done that and you know exactly what to do for this week, then we are done and you can sign off the call. And I will see you next Tuesday.